we've had some time to reflect. The team list has dropped. I know a lot of people would have seen it. The question now is, it is the same team. Is that a
Yep.
good thing? Is it a positive? Is it a negative? And what can we expect from those same team? Can we expect same results, or can we expect something different from that? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, knowing, obviously, all of us knowing Webby being here with us for the last couple of years, we do know that he allows players to try to fix up on their wrongs and try to, obviously improve their form themselves over time. And then, if it does get too bad, then obviously there has to be the chopping block. But I kind of do enjoy that we did run out the same team list here. I didn't think we were going to make too many changes. The only one I could ever see happening at the moment, Rocco Berry playing a little bit in New South Wales Cup over the weekend. I could have seen him maybe just pushing in, but probably good to have him back in Cup to get a little bit more fitness there. Obviously, the big talking points there is our same half pairing that we had over in Vegas has been heavily talked about over this period now, whether, we should be running with this halves pairing. I think, obviously, we talked about at the start of the season, we need to pick and stick. If we're going to stick solid with these guys, stick solid with these guys, and hopefully they can learn the system and pick up in their moments. Like, we saw good things in trials that allows me to continue to think that Metcalf can be a 7 and, Chanel can play off the back of that. I think that just a little bit more experience in playing, being the big dogs of the club will actually bode them so well for the future anyway. So I'm all good with sticking solid, but I'm definitely, I see a lot of fans out there that are very pulling their hair out a little bit at the moment.
There is a little bit of pressure. Fans have jumped, a majority or a lot of fans have jumped on Webby on the selections. I know people will get riled up seeing Jackson Ford in there. I'm with you though on the halves. Definitely think give them a full opportunity, and that they should be given that time and opportunity to correct, to fix up, to learn. And I think it's quite clear that Boyd at this time and Tamaire will be the Cup halves, but it's good to see. We'll get to that game later on as well. Good to see them play and play well in times. My question for you is, I know Jackson Ford has been getting a lot of stick. My question really is around, is Jackson Ford the problem, or is it how Webby is using Jackson Ford? I think he gets a bit of unfair criticism because of how he is used. I don't think he's a bad player. I think he's been a great player for us, but is it more on Webby or is it more on Jackson in that situation, how he was used in round one?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of things, right? Like, I think of just Jackson's period at the Warriors. He had some high moments when he was playing edge back rower, but he also had the stigma of, the high error rate that he started to really get into his game, especially last year. We started to find that playing him on the edge, he had a lot of bad errors and that. Webby ended up pushing him to the right edge, then pushing him, cutting him back to the bench. Remember that Cowboys game, we brought him off the bench into that Cowboys game. He played a really solid game there in the middle. So that's probably what given Webby confidence that he could play Jackson Ford in the middle and he would do a solid enough job. But obviously after the first game of the season, which again, I kind of just sit on like, we got to learn the lessons, right? So if he doesn't do it, we don't know about it. But, he ran out there with Jackson Ford. As I continue to say to people, I understand why he did it and why he did so. I don't think Jacko played a bad game. I did think that he was just used wrongly by Webby, right? But I also understand why Webby tried to go into the game like that, because it's exactly what Ricky Stewart tried to do coming into that game. Both teams looking like they were going to play very direct sort of football and we weren't going to try to play within our shape. We wanted to really knuckle down for the first 20 to 30, and then hopefully when we bring on Aaron Clark and Dylan Walker would blow out the game. But we didn't really account for, obviously, the Raiders blowing up our middles to start with anyway, with their offloading and their high velocity running style. So I think that it's a combination of things, right? I think that Jacko wasn't used to, right? And then when people saw him, hanging out of his ass after 50 minutes there, they also go back to what Jackson used to be as well, with errors and bad missed tackles, stuff like that. So I think he's a guy that's been labelled a type of guy, and also the way he used in round one probably mixed together, just created a perfect storm for Jackson right now.
Yeah, it's sometimes coaches can get in the habit of highlighting players' weaknesses by how they use them at times, and we've always been advocates of Jackson as a back rower. Yes, he's had issues. I mean, we had problems with him running lines. He just got he got so many. He was the part of the reason so many disallowed tries at times. So we understand he's not a perfect player, but I do see him at times, using him a bit more effectively
Yep.
across the board. But yeah, I think it's a bit harsh to blame him for solely everything.
No.
So
Yeah, it wasn't just him.
yeah, it wasn't just him, definitely. Just players, I think a few players are a little bit under the pump, but the likes of a CNK didn't have the greatest performance. Doesn't yet look like he's just lacking a little bit of spark, a little bit of energy. We know
Yep.
his game is built on energy and bringing that attitude and commitment. Just looked a little bit out of place at times. And when you're on the back foot, it's always going to be difficult. Is there a little bit of pressure on him, or what can we see from him in this game in terms of what we should expect from him? Can he get back to those 200 meters, or was it just a blip in Vegas and that we'll see him back to his normal self?
Yeah, overall, I think that number one, like I think that chance is being a little bit underappreciated in some sort of sense at the moment still. I think he still brings a good value to the squad overall, especially in that fullback jersey, right? But I do think there is becoming a little bit more pressure now, especially from the fan base. The fans obviously seeing someone like Tane Tuapiki, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck in the lineup, and bringing Roger back to back to the NRL definitely hasn't helped him. Obviously, with all the content creators and the social media and just media in general wanting to see Roger back in that fullback jersey, I think that really pushed a lot of spotlight on Chance, and not people are trying to highlight all the stuff that Chance does do wrong in moments, but don't really look at all the other stuff that he does do right for our lineup as well. I do think that game that he had over in Vegas for me is a blimp on the radar, especially when I see the stats that he's had in previous games before. He does have little things that he does need to fix up in his game. Like I'm always will hold my hands up that sometimes he gets caught up on the opposite side of the ruck. But again, I always say that that's an NRL issue. That's a fullback issue. That's not just a Chance issue. Sometimes he does look like he's, again, a guy that just runs himself ragged and he gets caught out sometimes trying to over chase, and he looks like he's not getting there in time due to obviously him overworking himself in the attacking shape sometimes as well. So there's definitely a spotlight on Chance. There's definitely improvement that he needs to do this year. If he cannot just keep up doing this 86 meter per game, what he had in Vegas, I think that, he should be getting back to what he was consistently last year. I continue to go back to, people don't understand, last year on average, he was the third best running fullback in the competition on average. So people got to understand that he was better than James Tedesco. He was better than Tom Trbojevic. He was better than a lot of those guys in run meters and getting us into the opposite end of the field. And then when we look at all the good stuff that he does, especially on that right-hand shape, he does link it up really, really well. So I think he's underrated. I think give him another couple of weeks, but there is becoming a bit more of a spotlight there. The only other way I can see it changing is for me, the next guy up a cab off the rank would be Tane Tuapiki. That's going to be pushing for that role. But unfortunately, Dallin is out with injury. So that's kind of the situation we're in right now, right?
Oh, yeah, and I think he's a victim. I think the back five in general, and you can go to the halves if you want, a victim of a lack of forward go momentum. Chance can do well when there's good go forward, and much like all the rest of the other players. So he's a bit of a victim of that the forwards haven't quite dominated. I think attack wise, they're just not quite in sync yet, and I'm looking forward to how he links up with the likes of a Metcalf specifically, even Egan around the ruck, a bit more variety with working those things. So hopefully we see a bit more of that foundation to his game there. But I honestly feel that he's still got it, but he needs a little bit better of a platform. We know he's more of an up and down fullback. We know he's a hard worker, and we appreciate that and know that in this system that's valued. So in essence, that performance in Vegas doesn't match the hard worker kind of role that he's played. So he needs to get back to what he's good at. I'd love to see him in that 150 meters range or 200 up. That would tell me when he's hitting 200s, everyone's having a good game because his numbers are quite up. But I'd expect them, especially at home and against the Seagulls. I reckon, we'll see. I think we'll see a bit of performance from him. But I'm looking for a lot of other things, and we'll go into that now. This forward pack has come under a little bit of criticism early, which is, I think, a little bit unfair. I do think Webby made the mistake of playing forward in terms of getting the synergy of what that nucleus was in preseason, which was JFH, Barnett, and Clark. I think we'll hopefully go back to JFH, Barnett, Clark.
Yep,
But
agreed.
what can we expect from this forward pack now that we've seen it, and especially coming up against a bit more another kind of physical but bigger size forward pack in terms of the Sea Eagles? What can we expect from them in your opinion?
Yeah, I've always known the Seagulls forward pack to be very hot and cold. And I don't think it's going to change this year at all. Like the Manly Seagulls performance over the weekend against the Cowboys was incredible. Like Manly at 4 pints, I've been saying it for a long time now. Manly at 4 pints is a completely different monster. And I think social media's got something to do with that as well, with the Hello Sport boys and their big following of Manly. It looks like their home games has just taken a whole new level. So I think that the forward pack over the weekend obviously played really, really solidly, in that game against the Cowboys. But I would say the Cowboys didn't really give him anything to like fight back on, right? I thought the Cowboys played pretty soft through the middle, in my opinion. Coming into this weekend, it does look like that Takiaho has been dropped out of the lineup due to an injury. So Josh Aloiai comes in. Taniela Paseka is still a big body, but there's moments where Taniela just doesn't know his size and doesn't play up to his size. So they are a forward pack that is fairly hot and cold. I think the one name that we all circle in that Manly forward pack, no matter what, and what makes it look very lethal, is a man called Ola Kowatu. And I think that's the one man out there that's just like, he's a game changer for them. And it's something that we lack in our edge back rollers as well, if we look over to our pack as well. But I think that our front row pairing can definitely take it to their boys. The edge back rollers is a bit more of I would say probably more so swinging to the Manly Seagulls with the big man Ola Kowatu on the edge there. So that's really where I'm looking at. I'm not too worried about Paseka or Aloiai too much, in my opinion.
Yeah, and going into that, I mean, the minutes, which has been a big, I suppose, talking point, and how the bench was used, and how, and saying that Manly can be hot and cold. What would you expect roughly from minutes wise for how our boys to be used? I mean, we did go with that change of Fish and Barnett, similar time off the field and back on. Roughly the same areas of time. Do you expect the same, or is there space to tweak it? Do we need a prop to play it a little bit longer, or is this a matter of trusting the young guys, giving them a bit more time as well?
Yeah, I think that Webby, I think he'll try to continue the whole James Fisher-Harris and Mitch Barnett play out for the first 20, 25, pull them off, and then have that middle period be filtered out with Jackson Ford, Dimitri Vaimuanga, and also Aaron Clark coming back into those changes there too. So Vaimuanga probably won't play the long minutes everyone's hoping for, even overall. But I just think that the way that we should be running, James Fisher-Harris has never been known for a long minute front row forward. If there's any other front row forward we can have that can push out the 35 first minute stint, then bring him off for a little bit, would be Mitch Barnett. But I do like the impact from like front row forwards. When they get through that first 20, they can really leave it out there on the football field, leave an impact. Then when we bring those boys off, we can have those two toilers Jackson at the hold down the middle part of the game, and then we can end off the game with that punch of those boys coming back off the back fence as well. I'm not too worried about everyone talking about both our captains coming off at the same time or whatever. We got someone like Dylan Walker in the middle of the field that's got an incredible leadership. We got guys like Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, an ex-captain of New Zealand Warriors, to talk about if we're going on captain's challenges and that. I don't think we lose in that sort of sense. I think that if we're looking at just more impact from both our front row forwards, I think they benefit from a 25-minute stint to start the game, bring them off, and then put them back on within another 25 later on in the game, and they'll filter out their 50-minute stints, right?
Yeah, I actually agree with it. I think people we have to move away from this long use of props. It does come to bite you in the long run. Yeah. I thought Webby, I always go back to last year, I thought he stretched out Barnett and AFB a little bit too much. So I agree, stick to your patterns early, and build the capacity of the young guys like Vaimonga and Halasima to a point where they can go a little bit longer and give that rest for the likes of, and use Jackson Ford and the right moments. And when I say are there enough minutes to go around, I think there are. It's just managing at the right times. There are some vulnerabilities. We saw last week against Vegas, we had a good period from, say, 10 minutes to up to 30 minutes, and then we lost our way. So bringing some of that impact on around the 30-minute mark or something like that to kind of shore up those middles, especially with the likes of a Travojevic starting to sneak around the ruck around that time. Those are things that I think just a bit more tactical timing
Yep.
for Webby, of the usage of the guys. And again, when you're putting Jackson Ford on at the right time, it all makes sense. You know what I mean? And then fans start
Agreed.
going, "Oh, bro, that was a great interchange. You brought Jackson on there. Jackson shored up that middle. Great job." You know. So I
Yep.
think there's a little bit of pressure on Webby just to get it right, but I think he can. I think he can get it right. Just quickly on Tarns' question here: who takes the captain role when Fish and Barney come off, just in case they need to challenge? Is it RTS? I think it might be Walker or it could be Egan.
Yeah, it could be Egan or Walker, one of those two. But I'm
Yeah.
sure that one of them will just get the captaincy nod anyway. The referee will just have to take it on that those boys are off the field. So honestly, I don't think that changes too much. I think, like as I said before, we all seen Dylan Walker's leadership now step up to a new level since he's given that role, that longer minute role, and how vital he is for the club. Like I don't see the big difference of having, both Fish and Barnett off the field with he's back on there for captain's challenges overall, especially when we got leaders like Roger Tuivasa-Sheck there. Wade Egan's been at the club for ages, and Chance Nickel-Clockstack's just as much of a leader as any of them as well. So that's
Yep.
my opinion.
Yep. Yeah, no, I totally agree with that.